What's up, and welcome back to another live stream with Gizmo Slip Tech. Today we're doing an unboxing review of the HP Omen 16, and we have got a ton of things. We're going to start off with doing some top deals, so the best deals across all the different price points, and then we're going to jump into a comparison against the best competitors for the HP Omen 16. We're looking at the value that this thing provides at the current price point, also at the sales price point. $899 is how much I paid for this laptop, $899 plus tax, and it was just on sale a few days ago at that price. And so at the current price, $1249, not recommended for these specs for sure, but at $899, it feels like this might be a very, very compelling package. This is my Gaming Laptops 2023 ranked list. This covers all of the top deals and it's updated every single day. You're going to be able to find the very best deals. Not all of these deals are necessarily going to be the best laptop for everybody. Like the MSI Bravo 15, this thing is so cheap now. It dropped another $100. This was originally a $1,000 laptop. Now it's $699. As cheap as laptops go pretty much. And the display quality is also very low, but it's absolutely bonkers GPU performance per dollar. So if you're just after GPU performance and you only have $700 to spend, that's probably the way to go. But in general, I would recommend a laptop with a better display if you can spend a few $100s more still. Okay, this is the laptop we're actually going to be reviewing today. It's currently priced at $1249. It just was on sale for $899 though. And I got mine from Best Buy. You can see I purchased it right there on July 5th. This guy's got an i5 processor, 16 gigs of memory, RTX 4050, 512 gig SSD. Pretty sure you can also buy this directly from HP's website. Questions about this laptop are build quality. If the build quality is good, if the keyboard feels good, the touchpad is good, what other features come with the Omen 16? Does it have G-Sync? Does it have Advanced Optimus? Does it have a MUX switch? What are the ports on it? What are the quality of the ports on it? Thermally, obviously, we're going to try to answer that question today. How good of thermals does the Omen 16 have? Does it overheat? Is it worth considering if you got in that like $1,000-ish range? Obviously, I don't recommend it at $1249. There's definitely better options out there. Acer Nitro 5. I did a recent review on it. You get an RTX 4050, 16 gigs of DDR5, 512 gig SSD, 144 Hertz Full HD, 70% sRGB, 260 nits was what we measured. Lenovo Lock 16, very competitive. Definitely has a little bit better screen on it than some of the other laptops. And not only is it a 16:10 aspect ratio display instead of 16:9, the Omen 16 also 16:10 aspect ratio. The Lock also is a 350 nits display, so it's brighter. That's going to be more visible in more vibrant environments. And it's currently priced at $959, which is a good bang for the buck, but not quite as good as the Omen 16 when it was on sale for $899. The Acer Nitro 5 with a 3070 Ti and a QHD screen, 1TB SSD, $969. So $969, this thing comes with so much graphical power that it makes it very easy to recommend as a temporary deal for while it's on sale. The MSI Katana 15, an i5 12450H, RTX 4060, 16 gigs, 1TB SSD, 144 Hz display, $999. So $100 more than what we're paying for the Omen 16. And it's got the 4060 instead of the 4050, which has a little bit more VRAM, 2 gigs more in the VRAM, and about maybe 10 to 15% more performance. Asus Strix G18, one of the first laptops I reviewed this year. Really phenomenal as long as you don't have coil whine. You get the i9, the top processor from Intel with this laptop, an RTX 4080, a QHD 240Hz 500 nits display that's just gorgeous. Right now it's $400 on sale. RTX 4070, 1TB SSD, full HD 144Hz, but it's an RTX 4070 and it's an Asus with an i7 processor. $1149. This guy is, I think, an incredibly compelling deal all around. It's going to be a really good value for someone that's looking for high-end graphical performance at a reasonable price. And so here's the Omen 16 right here. Let's go ahead and just turn this around real quick so you can get an idea of the box. And this is what was shipped. It was shipped in this as the external box, which honestly is not as much packaging as I would usually like. I definitely would prefer more packaging if possible. And now it did have like this holding the laptop in place. I don't know. And the laptop was wrapped in plastic and then wrapped in cloth. I just think the packaging could definitely be improved in terms of safety for packaging. The Omen 16 power adapter is right here. It's a pretty decent sized power adapter for 230 watts. There you go. So if you want to look at the details on that, if you want to order a second one, only about 4 feet long for the main power cable, maybe even three and a half feet long. Not a very long power cable. Power adapters cable is like 6 feet long, so you get a total reach of around 10 feet, which is not bad, but obviously I would prefer it if this cable was a couple feet longer. Now we got this nice cloth fabric wrapped around the laptop itself. Omen logo right there on the top. This is shiny, metallic, silvery looking. We've got a plastic top. You can see the entire rear of the laptop is exhaust, though this part, at least it looks like exhaust, but you can see this part is actually not used for anything. Not actually exhaust. It's like blocked off. So the actual exhaust comes out here and here. I'm not too worried about that in this, I guess, chassis wattage range, because a 4050 doesn't need more than 100 watts of power, so I think it will still be all right. Along the right side, you can see there's no fan exhaust. Along the left side, we do have another fan exhaust. So you get 3 fan exhausts coming out of this laptop. And just reviewing the ports real quick, headset adapter port here on the left, so there's a combo. Fan exhaust, USB-A, and it looks like this is a power type. So like you can power something while the laptop's asleep. At least it has a little power symbol next to it. Ethernet port. Along the right side, we've got our power adapter port and HDMI. And then we have 2 USB-As, and then we have a USB-C that I believe is also a Thunderbolt 4. Yeah, HDMI 2.1, 3 USB-A 3.2s, and 1 USB-C 3.2. Notice at the bottom of the laptop, so it's plastic all the way around. We got speaker grills here on the left and right side, so they're downward firing speakers to the left and right sides. Air intakes right here on the bottom, and if I turn this correctly, you'll be able to see exactly where those are. One right here, kind of along here, and then over here. So it's like a picture of the Omen laptop. Says find more information. Whole getting started here guide, making, saying plug in your laptop and then press the power button. This does talk about Advanced Optimus right here. That makes me think it might have Advanced Optimus, which would be very cool. HP Worldwide Limited Warranty and Technical Support. Oh, this is interesting. I'm actually seeing this, and I don't think this is a 16:10 aspect ratio on this display. We've got a nice big chin here on the bottom, which it makes me wonder what the heck's going on here. Okay, so for design, we've got a 16 here. We got a nice white backlit keyboard, which I do love that. The touchpad, pretty sure this is a plastic touchpad. It feels plastic. It does feel pretty good though, like in terms of stability. It doesn't feel cheap to click, but I will say that it does not feel super premium because it's not glass. So the keyboard layout is pretty unique. HP, I think, is the only laptop manufacturer right now, at least in the gaming laptop space, where you get this style of a layout, where you get the arrow keys off to the side. The keyboard itself is not centered up. It's actually a little to the left of the touchpad, a little left of center, which some people will love that. Some people will hate that because it does impact how you lay your hands on the keyboard itself. So it's a pretty quiet overall keyboard, and it has a nice shunk to the keys. And I gotta say, the backlight of the keyboard itself is very clean. And this looks super bright. Even in this kind of studio lighting, we can easily see the backlight on this. But as far as I know, this is not a multicolor. It's a white only backlight, and it does time out after about 30 seconds or so of not touching the keyboard. It will disappear. Obviously, this is not a keyboard layout that includes a number pad. So that is probably one of the biggest cons of the keyboard itself. It's also not a mechanical keyboard, so you're not gonna get the same type of like tactile feedback, kind of loud typing experience. It's got a very shunk feel to it. Caps lock has a little key light. F5 key, which is the mute button, also has a little key light on it. So you can see the caps lock here has a little light. And then the F5 button, you have to press FN to press it, but you can see it does kind of glow orange when it's muted. So when the volume is down. Display monitor function over here for F1. We've got display brightness up and down for F2 and 3. We've got keyboard backlight brightness on F4. Volume mute, volume down, volume up for F5 through 7. Rewind pause, fast forward for F8 through 10, disable touchpad, Windows lock, power button, and delete for our last buttons over there. Then over here on the right, we've got an Omen button, a calculator hotkey, print screen, insert, home, and page up, page down, and pause, which is interesting because I would have rather them put the delete key probably here where it would normally be on a traditional laptop, and then put the pause up here where the delete is there. I don't know. It's a little different because this is more like the classic keyboard, big keyboard, like desk keyboard style layout, with the exception of the pause and delete key being flipped. And then of course the arrow keys also are separated off very nicely, which you can see the touchpad is a large touchpad. It's not a small touchpad, but it's not glass. Like I said, and the click feels okay. Not super premium on the click, but it'll work just fine. And in terms of functionality, it's just not going to glide as smoothly as a glass touchpad. You lose a little bit of the premium feel because it is plastic. In terms of typing on this, I think most people are going to enjoy the typing experience on this, no problem. Backlight is great. It's just not very RGBified or gamery. Let's see what we need. We need some small Phillips screwdrivers right now. Okay, so I ended up with PH000 for my Phillips head screwdriver. 7 of these screws, well, 6 of these screws are the same size, but the back 2 screws over here on these 2 corners, they are a different size. To put the longer screws back in the back corners, otherwise you may stick a screw all the way through your laptop, which would not be good. This is a little tricky. I'm not seeing any major gaps. There's no pop-up screw. I think I'm just gonna try going in the front middle. Fairly easy to take this laptop apart so far. Here is the inside of the laptop. You know, we got 2 big heat pipes going across that's shared across both of the fans. The fans are a good size, which is great to see. And this fan does have a dual exhaust. And then in addition, we have a 3rd heat pipe dedicated to just the GPU. And looks like that's gonna help basically ensure the GPU stays cooler. Most likely, I think these thermals are gonna be enough to keep this laptop at a reasonable place and giving us basically full performance of the machine, but we will see. 2 SODIMM slots, which means we have fully upgradable RAM, 8 gig 1RX16 PC5 5600. So we got super fast RAM in here, which is great to see. A lot of these budget laptops are only including PC5, DDR5 4800. I'm wondering if this can even run at 5600 with this i5 CPU. It might not be able to. We'll have to find out. It is just single-sided and 1RX16, which means it's on the slower side as far as RAM goes, but at the same time, it is DDR5. We've got our Wi-Fi stick right here. So if you want to upgrade that, that's easy to access. So it's a Realtek Wi-Fi card, which is usually on the slower side as far as Wi-Fi memory cards or Wi-Fi cards go. So you can always upgrade that for 20 bucks. SSD right here. The cover right now is like attached to the SSD. See if we can get that off. There we go. All right. So here is our SSD, an SK Hynix brand. I believe it's a 512 gig. Yeah, 512 gig SK Hynix. I gotta say, I don't know if a double-sided SSD would fit inside of this. Probably not. So if you're upgrading your SSD, you might not be able to use this shroud. Yeah, I'm guessing if you're gonna keep this, if you're gonna use this shroud again, at least the bottom panel, you probably won't be able to use the bottom panel if you use a double-sided SSD. That'd be my guess. It's a 70 watt-hour battery. So the battery itself could be bigger, but for a budget system, that's a pretty decent size. I wish this had a second SSD slot, and I wish it had a better Intel Wi-Fi card. Overall, the layout is nice, and I do love that you can upgrade both of the RAM sticks quite easily. Thermally speaking, this is definitely not an overkill system. The speakers are Bang & Olufsen, and there are downward firing 1 and 2 on the left and right sides. You can see them right there. All right, so screen. That seems pretty solid, but not like amazing rigidity. Like I'm picking up the laptop when I move it left and right. Like you can see it, I'm like literally picking up the laptop. So that's a lot of force on the laptop itself. The hinge can go all the way back and lay flat. So that's 100% of the way back. And it does have a slight wobble when you let it go. It does feel pretty stiff when you move it through the primary range right here. You can bounce it a little bit, but you know, you can pretty much do that to any laptop, even the Blade 18 here, you can see. It's hard to know if it's gonna be a perfect in terms of long-term reliability. I'm guessing as long as the location for the glue and the screws and everything were done correctly, it should be all right. The plastic keyboard deck definitely has some flex here, right? I'm pushing gently right here. If I push hard, it does have some flex there. I think, you know, under normal circumstances, it's gonna flex a little bit under your wrist here. This middle area is gonna flex a pretty decent amount. The touchpad obviously is gonna be, you know, you click it in and there's less flex over here on the left side, which is nice to see. I would say this is certainly above average amount of flex, which I don't love. I don't love that. I'm definitely above average. Wish this was more rigid. There probably needs to be another support here from the chassis design perspective. The keyboard itself is about average in terms of flex, not like amazing, not terrible. Very rigid along the top, lots of support along the top there. It's primarily right here on the right hand rest where I would say the flexibility is a little bit more than I would say is ideal and recommended. The webcam actually has a physical shutter that you can use to cover the web camera. I really love that. That's so cool. Camera quality test next. I can see my beard hair pretty well. Got a little bit of noise to it, but it's actually pretty dang good detail. Overall, I think the webcam is above average for a gaming laptop camera, and it looks a little bit reddish. As far as webcam quality goes, I give it probably like a 7 out of 10, 6.5, 7 out of 10. Slightly above average webcam. 44.5 decibels is our baseline level for our volume right now. Well, especially during the early bass, the bass was sound very clear and good. But then like once all the other sounds came in, it kind of got a bit more muddled. The mids and highs didn't sound as good there in the transition. And also the overall volume is not as loud as some of the more expensive laptops as well. So let's check out Faded Aeon Half-Life. Wow, those mids and highs actually sounded pretty decent. Better than honestly most other $900 laptops for sure. La 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 Love You Like by Deuce Williams. I love you like la 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 la. I love you like la 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 la. I love you like la 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 la. I love you like la la. We hit, I saw like 86, 87 decibels on the decibel meter, which is pretty good amount of volume. I would say the speakers are probably right around like an 8 out of 10 overall. The key really, I think, is that once everything is really like going, like the full sound is going with the bass and the mids and the highs, that's when it kind of breaks down a little bit more. But when it's just the mids or it's just the highs or it's just the bass, it sounds really good. But it's really when it all comes together. And so certain sound environments, certain types of music won't sound as good with these speakers, I think. Okay, so the important thing to keep in mind with my display checker tool, the Spider 5 Elite, this guy, underestimates color gamut by around like 7 to 8%. Whatever ratings we get here, you're gonna have to add another 7 to 8% to them. So it got 63% of sRGB, which brings us to about 70% sRGB total, 55% Adobe RGB, and 55% of the P3 color gamut. So 70% sRGB, not amazing, right? This is a This is going to be a budget-ish display. Whoa, our brightness, 324 nits. That's brighter than I thought it was going to be. That's brighter than what HP advertises. HP advertises 250 nits, but this is 324 nits. That's awesome. And the contrast ratio is actually 1020 to 1. Okay, so the weakness of this display is definitely in the color gamut range being only 63% of Adobe RGB. That's definitely below what is ideal. When you compare this to most of the other budget systems out here, this display is better. Now the question is, it's better because of this brightness. This makes the display, I think, much more competitive against the Lenovo Lock, because that's rated for 350 nits. So this puts this display in the same ballpark of display quality as the Lenovo Lock. Also, this is a 16:9 aspect ratio display. Look at that, 1920 by 1080p resolution. That explains why we got the bottom chin, just like I kind of pointed out at the beginning. There's very little backlight bleed to this laptop. So I've got RGB going on behind me a little bit. That's the colors you're seeing here. There's not actually any blacklight bleed problems in the corners or anything there. Just a tiny little bit of backlight bleed, but very, very minor. Excellent backlight bleed compared to most. That's what the keyboard looks like in a dark room. That is so bright and so easy to see the keys. I would say that's definitely above average in terms of keyboard backlight clarity. So we're gonna be using Timespy as our load to be able to see how loud the fans are, as well as to see our thermals at any of the different fan profile levels. So this is the Omen Gaming Hub. This is HP's software for controlling the laptop. Inside of here, Network Booster. This allows you to prioritize certain applications. If you want the laptop to download certain things faster or prioritize a certain game that you play. Performance allows you to switch between eco mode, balanced mode, and performance mode. Eco, balanced, and performance mode are the three that we're going to be doing. There's also a thermal control option, which is auto, maximum, and manual. So in manual, you can set the system fan to be a specific RPM if you want, just to say like, go to this RPM and just stay there. You can also set a dynamic fan curve, allowing you to raise the temperature or raise the fan noise at certain temperatures. If the laptop is reaching 90 degrees Celsius, the fans need to be going at least 66%. You need to set the minimum fans curve to 66% or 90 degrees Celsius, or at 90 degrees Celsius, it must be that. And then at 85 degrees Celsius, it can be down to 32% though. So that's like kind of minimum fan noise. But you'd obviously probably want to put this up to like at least the 50% range is what I would guess. You also have CPU and GPU, because they're like each of the fans, remember inside the laptop, each of the fans are separate. When you switch between these, I think this controls one fan and this controls the other fan when you switch between these two. But anyway, we're going to be doing auto fan and max fans today. So we're gonna start with auto fans with the three modes, eco, balanced, and performance. And then we're gonna switch to max fan to see, you know, just maximum possible fan noise. So we're gonna start out in eco mode. Also notice that we're in hybrid mode. You can switch right here between hybrid, which allows you to have productivity, media consumption, internet browsing with better battery life, switching to the integrated GPU, or discrete mode, which allows you to run just the NVIDIA GPU only with no battery, but that also helps boost performance just slightly. There is no option in here to control the GPU, so there's no advanced Optimus, but there is a mux switch. So let's go ahead and restart and put this into discrete only GPU mode. When you're in eco mode, thermal control adjustment is not available. So you cannot set your power mode. Under balanced, you can, and under performance, you can. That's our ambient noise in the room, 43 decibels. That's with the fan going. Like we're in eco mode right now. The laptop has been running for about a minute in the test. 43 decibels is like 1 decibel louder now that these fans are running, and I can barely hear the fans running. We're getting 81 watts, right around 80 watts of power to the GPU. Our GPU boost clock is at 2370, 2445, 2460. We're utilizing the GPU 100%, 66 degrees for our GPU temp. That's really good. Our CPU is only sipping 15 watts approximately. Our GPU is doing 80 watts, but really good temps between the CPU and the GPU right now. Our wrist rest on the left side is completely cool as well. Our WASD keys are just slightly warm. Center of the keyboard, slightly warm. Along the top of the display, it's definitely warm. I'd say 44.5 decibels in eco mode. Switching over to balanced mode now. Our boost clock is doing 2,500 approximately. Our GPU temperatures have gone up 70 degrees from about 64 to about 70 degrees. And that happened fairly quickly. I can also hear that the fans ramped up a little bit louder. Not much. The fans ramped up to about 48 decibels, and then they ramped back down into like the 45, 46-ish decibel range. I'm guessing it's because like a temperature of something up here went over 75 degrees or something, and then that triggered the fans to ramp up just a little bit. Performance mode on auto fans. Notice that we're doing 95 watts of power to the GPU, so we got an additional 5 watts of performance into the GPU. Our boost clock is now hitting 2580 for the GPU boost, which is, it's a little bit better, about 80 megahertz more. Our temperatures have also gone down because they were kind of in the low 70s to mid 70s, between 70 and 75. Now our GPU temp is down to 64. It dropped like 10 degrees while at the same time going up in performance. I do really like that, obviously, but the louder fans are louder. So if you're after minimal fan noise and still almost as much performance, like it's not going to be that much of a performance difference here. If you want a quiet all around system, you're still getting really good temps here. So 56.5 decibels approximately for the performance mode on auto fans. So maximum fans sounds like it's the same. Like it went up 100 RPM, I think. All right, so we're doing 2600 megahertz, 2595, 88, 89 watts, 54 degrees, 56 degrees on the CPU, GPU. Those are super cool GPU, CPU, excellent thermals all around so far. So 73 degrees on the CPU here. 4.5 gigahertz, 64 watts of power there at the end. 8,603, 9,300. That's pretty good. If I wanted to do a quick and dirty undervolt overclock, let's see if we can. Right now it's doing right around 1,020. If we wanted to undervolt this to run more power efficiently, we might want to go down to something like 950. This is obviously more advanced. I did a whole guide on how to do this. We're going down to 950. We're going to up the core clock up to, let's see if we can do 2,700, which is plus 255. OC undervolt. So we're doing now 2,700 megahertz on the core clock for the GPU. At the same time, we were doing 90 something watts of power, like 89 to 95 watts of power. Now we're doing 75 to 80 watts of power through the GPU. Our temperatures look like they've gone down a little bit because we were like over 60 in max fan mode before. So I would anticipate the temps to go down 5 degrees or so with this type of setup. I don't know if this is going to be stable long term. So far in Timespy, it appears to be stable. Let's see if it's stable. Let's see if our GPU can actually run at 2,700. With that OC undervolt overclock, we're only able to boost our score just slightly at 8,711. Very interesting. 9,333 for our CPU score. So not a big jump by undervolting overclocking, but our temperatures were reduced. That's probably the main advantage to doing an overclock undervolt. Okay, so for now, we're going to just reset our OC back to stock. Here we are, we've got 4 performance cores and 4 E cores. But the nice thing about only having 8 cores is it probably won't need that much power. Okay, so our P cores are doing 4.5 gigahertz. Our E cores are doing 3.4 gigahertz. That is excellent. And our temperature right now is 74 degrees. We're pulling 72 watts of power through the system. There's our result, 11,953. which is not at all a bad result. It's just not as good as, say, 15,000 or 14,500 like the Acer Nitro 5 gets at the same price. We haven't even busted 80 degrees on the CPU yet. That is phenomenal temperature management. So far, it has not slowed down at all, doing right around 66 watts. Now it went down to 46 watts. And now we're doing 3.7 gigahertz, okay? So there's the slowdown. There's the long-term power limit kicking in. So there's 10,800. Let's do another run. Now we're doing 53 watts, 55 watts. Eventually, you know, it's gonna go down to the 45 watt long-term power limit after usually 45 seconds to a minute-ish, sometimes 2 minutes, depending on how it's all set up. But it's far from our maximum clock speed. Our maximum clock speed being 4.5 gigahertz on the P cores, 3.4 gigahertz on the E cores, and now we're doing 3.9 and 3.0. So it's a marked step down because of the decreased wattage here. Very interesting, 61 watts. And notice our clock speed's also bumping up to 4.2, 4.3 gigahertz. That's nice. It's interesting that it's able to do that boosting after the fact. Like it went, like initially it was faster, and then it went down a little bit, and then it came back up. 70, we've hit 70 watts again. And notice our clock speed, 4.5, 3.4. Okay, so at the end, our core clocks average 4.3 gigahertz. On the P cores, 3.3 gigahertz on the E cores, 73 degrees on the CPU, 61.8 watts of power during the time, 11,674. That is very good. This is the Omen gaming hub. Let's just go over it really quick. You can buy peripherals in here. You can see your basic stuff. There is a light studio. I don't think this laptop is gonna have any additional lighting settings other than keyboard backlight brightness. Under the Omen 16 tab is where you can control your system vitals. Data here for your network, your GPU, CPU utilization, RAM utilization. Under the Advanced tab, I actually like the Advanced tab a lot. You can see what each of your cores on your CPU are doing, your package power, your GPU information, and your temperature, as well as your RAM utilization and network utilization. So it's kind of like an HW info built into the software, which is cool. So, and as far as how I would prioritize this, I would probably just set it to balanced mode. Honestly, I would leave it on auto fans if it was me, and I would probably keep it on balanced mode. If you get an Omen 16 that has RGB keyboard or other lights on it, you can control that in this software. So right now we're in high settings. This is extremely smooth. My big focus is checking for any ghosting or any like screen tearing, that kind of stuff. Because as far as I can tell, this laptop does not have G-Sync. We're almost to the highest possible refresh rate, but I'm pretty sure our 1% low is gonna get a lot better. Let's go ahead and set everything to low. 215 FPS at 1080p resolution. Oh yeah, this is good. Okay, excellent. So there you go, 215 FPS, 142, 141 for our 1% lows is phenomenal. We'll do sniping for a round and see if we can get some kills with a sniper rifle. Well, he legging out. Whoa, the servers. Nailed him. Dang it, come on back. Okay, this is playing really well. Like, it doesn't really get much better than this in terms of gameplay experience and fun factor. So we're gonna set it minimum spec. DLSS on quality, textures, go to high. So 57 FPS, 26 for our 1% low right now. That's not amazing. If Warzone 2 is your game, this laptop might not be the one for you. Whoa, it like didn't deploy our parachute until last second right there. Okay. 70, 67 FPS, 41 for our 1% low. That's a pretty good 1% low considering we're only getting 64 FPS. Overall, 63 FPS is not amazing. It's really not that good. I think a lot of people are gonna wish they got higher FPS if you're a Warzone player and you're buying this laptop. So you're gonna wanna look for a laptop with more cores if you're after a Warzone performance, basically.
Hostiles are using recon.
Ooh, they're hitting us. Around 60 FPS with this laptop. Not bad. It's definitely playable, but it's not good. CSGO is a very single-threaded CPU-focused game to where it's not as reliant on multiple cores. You can see we're getting 500 FPS right now. Right now we're doing 400 FPS. The FPS counter, of course, is right down here in the bottom middle. We're bouncing between 200 and 300 FPS right now. One of the key indicators to me for performance is what is the FPS like right as you go into the smoke? How low does it go? We're getting down to 80, 70. Wow, that's actually really good. Stayed in the 70s. A lot of laptops go down into the 45, 50 range. The best laptops go down to like 80 to 90. 352.19 right here. Very, very good. Ultra settings. Go to our display. We want to be 16 by 9 aspect ratio. That's correct. DLSS is on quality. We're hitting around 50, 66 FPS looking over here in the corner. That's a little higher than normal. Let's go ahead and do our test. 55 FPS, 49 for our 1% low. So we're not really stuttering hardly at all. And this is obviously going to be very good gameplay, not quite hitting in the ideal range. Well, 65 FPS now. Okay, so 58, 47, that's almost ideal for like perfect gameplay in God of War, or like not quite perfect because it's like not high refresh rate gaming. Let's see what we get in low settings. On low settings, now we're doing 120. We're at 1080p full screen. Graphics are gonna go ray tracing on ultra, frame generation enabled, DLSS to quality. Cyberpunk 2077, we're doing 68 FPS, 23 for our 1% low. We are maxing our VRAM at 6 gigs of VRAM with this RTX 4050. That's obviously a concern, but as long as we don't run into severe stuttering, then I'm not too worried. That said, our 1% lows are doing pretty good at 32 right now, 71 FPS. So 74 FPS, 74.01 FPS. This is playing really well. It's playing really smoothly. Even though these are some frame generation frames, it still feels quite good. Frame generation, primarily downside is slightly more input lag into the system. It's honestly, it's barely noticeable if you're playing high FPS games. It's a lot more noticeable when you're doing less than 60 FPS in the game. Okay, so we averaged 70 FPS, 34 for our 1% lows during that gameplay. For the fun of it, let's just try swapping over to high settings. 133, 140 FPS. This is so smooth. It looks absolutely amazing. We're gonna set textures to low. Everything's gonna be on ultra. Ray tracing is enabled. DLSS is on quality. Frame generation is enabled. Frame rate is uncapped. Looking real quick at our temperatures, 57 degrees, 65 on the CPU, 4.5 gigahertz on the CPU, that's good. 37, 38 watts. We are being CPU bound. Notice our GPU is only at 82% utilization and only 67, 65 watts to that GPU. 76 for our average FPS, 37 for our 1% lows is actually very good. Okay, so 33 for our 1% low, 71 for our average. You know, most laptops end up stuttering more than 33. So our 1% low being only 33 is very good. 71 is pretty good, but like I said, if I was playing this game on this laptop, I would just disable ray tracing, and then you're gonna get quite a big bump, probably into the 90 to 100 FPS range. And it would help raise your 1% lows as well. So ultra preset, video options, 1080p 144 hertz, 79 degrees to the CPU. It's looking good. It's looking very good. Here we go. We're doing our benchmark for Dead Space. 71 FPS, 28 for our 1% low. Obviously extremely playable, very good gameplay here in Dead Space, and honestly these temps are really, really good for Dead Space. Don't know that this is the highest performance that we've seen in Dead Space with an RTX 4050, probably not, but it's some of the best dang temperatures we've seen. This is gonna be good. It's gonna be a great gaming experience in Dead Space. Not really have any problems there. So we are at 1080p. We want to go to DLSS, quality. For graphics, we're gonna be ultra settings with textures on medium. Let's see what we're at. So 58 degrees on the GPU. It's very good. 73 on the CPU. Pretty high CPU demand in this game. 92 FPS right now is very impressive. For ultra settings, medium, I'm guessing it's because we let the shaders preload. This seems higher FPS than normal. I want to do a quick audio example. Auto fans with balanced mode.
I sell hardcore drugs.
Oh, good. You started helping out with the mortgage then.
Yeah, you wish.
So we had one big stutter in the middle of that cinematic. Like, these speakers are loud. They're pretty dang clear. At least in this game mode, it sounds really good. Like,
There seems to be some commotion coming from the...
overall, Last of Us is doing awesome. The temps were still very good. Let's go to max fans, max performance. So frame generation is enabled, high quality ray tracing, DLSS 3 with frame gen on, DLSS on quality. So right now we're doing 88 FPS in Last of Us with high quality settings. Our temps are excellent on the CPU and the GPU, both, which is great to see. 80 watts to the GPU. We ended up with 93.8 FPS. That's pretty dang good. 75 FPS on average across all three, even with ray tracing enabled, settings on ultra, DLSS on quality, no frame generation, 75 FPS, still gonna be very playable in Shadow of the Tomb Raider at maximum settings. So I love to see that. Display settings, we're gonna go ray tracing to ultra, DLSS is on quality, full screen, 1080p, frame generation is enabled. 66 FPS. Our 1% low has been phenomenal, by the way. Let's do it. So this is our benchmark for The Witcher 3, 1080p ultra settings, frame generation enabled. $70 FPS. It's quite good. We are hitting near our max VRAM limitations, but 70 FPS, 44 for a 1% low, extremely playable in The Witcher 3. I love to see that. Value comparison at $12.49. This thing's not very good. When it was on sale and I bought it for $8.99, I think that's a very good deal. We've got great thermals here. We've got a great gaming experience overall and a fairly portable package with a fairly high quality display, 324 nits brightness, over 1020:1 contrast ratio, not super high color gamut on the display, so not as good for video editors, photoshoppers, all of that. Keyboard feels good. The trackpad's only plastic, so not as premium. Speakers were surprisingly good. The acoustics in fan modes were also very good. For speakers, I gave them a rating of 8.0, which is pretty good overall for a more budgety laptop. The ports on this are good, but not great. There's no SD card slot. There's only 4 USB-As. There's a network port. There's an HDMI 2.1, which is a high quality HDMI out. The ports on this are more limited than what you typically get in a 16-inch laptop. I would expect 1 to 2 more ports on this, so a little bit deduction from there. Now, the fan noise itself was only like 44 and a half decibels in quiet mode, and it still has pretty good performance. In balanced mode on auto, it was like 46 to 48 decibels, also still very quiet. And the speakers are loud enough to play great games, great gameplay. When you put the speakers up to max, you're gonna hear the gameplay. The fans won't be very intrusive when in balanced mode on auto fan. So the Omen 17 has a lot better ports. The Omen 17 had some more premium options like better quality displays. And I think the biggest thing about the Omen 17, obviously you can have much higher, you can get a 4080 or 4090 in that machine. This version of the Omen 16, you can't do that. That said, I mean, in terms of feel and aesthetic and premiumness, I feel like they're about in the same tier of category in terms of premium feel. And in that sense, I think this is much better than the competition. The design of the chassis itself feels like a fairly nice-ish laptop. Now it's all plastic, so it's nothing special for build quality. But for rigidity, I think the Omen 16 feels pretty dang rigid, except for the right wrist rest. When we did the flex test, the right wrist rest was a bit more bendy. In general, though, I think the design itself, like that's probably the big thing that stands out to me about the Omen 16. Like, I really like this design. It comes across as a more premium laptop than it actually is, like the price tag would indicate at $899. And I like the layout of the actual keyboard itself. And the backlight is very bright and very vibrant. Obviously, it's only one color though, at least in this mode. The display itself is going to be good for esports, but in Warzone 2, we just didn't have enough cores and enough performance, CPU performance, to push higher frame rate gaming. So we're only getting about 60 FPS, still very good gameplay, but it's just not as good as what you'd ideally want when you're buying a brand new laptop. That was probably the weakest game out of all the games we tested in terms of esports compatibility. Very high frames in most esports are going to be achievable on this Omen 16. Our AAA games played great. We had great FPS and temperatures in basically everything. Very good performance. If you're after 1080p gaming, this Omen 16 is going to provide a great 1080p gaming experience that's going to be tough. It's not going to be tough to beat. There's a lot of laptops out there that are very competitive with this. The big thing that where this thing could be beat by a number of other laptops is going to be display quality, and then just number of cores in the CPU. In particular, is an area of weakness on this Omen 16. Only 4 performance cores and 4 E cores is a big downside, because a lot of the newer games that are going to come out, I think, are going to want to be able to use more than 4 cores. For performance cores. Of course, for multi-core rendering, things like video editing, they're going to obviously be able to use lots of cores as well. Depending on what applications you use, this may not be the ideal or best budget option. That's my thoughts on the Omen 16. Is it worth it at $899? Yes, it is absolutely worth it at $899, but it does have some weaknesses, primarily the display's color gamut. And number 2, the number of cores that it has is just not as competitive. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Brandon, out.